Can you hear me? I hope everyone can hear me online as well. I'm really happy to be moderating today the second track of GUADEC on the first day. We finally started, we are here, and after a couple of minutes of delay, we can continue with our first speaker, Sri and Georg. Is it correct?
Georg.
Georg, okay. Excuse us, this is an international conference. It's sometimes hard to get the names right, but we're getting there. And we are going to hear about CHAOSS and GNOME, leveraging the power of community-driven metrics. There you go.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction. Okay. I'm going to run through my slides here. This talk is CHAOSS and GNOME, leveraging the power of community-driven metrics. I am Ramkrishna, and my partner in crime is Georg from Georgia. And thanks and welcome to our talk. So who am I? I think all of you know me. I've been part of this community for over 21 years. Professionally, I am a senior community manager and developer relations for One API at Intel Corporation. So I do a lot of things with events organization, which strangely, all the things I'm doing in this job I learned from GNOME, because for some reason, me building Linux App Summit and everything has now moved into a paying gig in corporation. So it just kind of shows that working on open source projects can lead to interesting things in your career. My partner in crime is Georg. He's the co-founder of CHAOSS Project and director of sales at Georgia. Do you want to add anything more, Georg? I don't hear you as easily here. Can anybody hear?
If you can't hear me,
Better now.
Much better. Yeah. All right, great. So we're gonna, in this talk, we're gonna be talking about metrics, no kidding, right? But really getting into how metrics can drive storytelling and how they can convince employers to convince funders to give us money, and ways that we can apply metrics in an open source project, in an organization, and then really show how can we do that, right? What are the resources for applying metrics? And then followed by a question and answers. And if you don't have any questions, I will have questions for you. So going forward. So the first thing is defining success, right? And I like to focus on the GNOME Foundation, right? It's a nonprofit organization that believes the world is empowered by technology that we can trust, right? Trust is the kind of key thing here. And we want to build something that's diverse and sustainability to build a personal computing experience. And so what do I mean by diverse? People, skills, technology, community, and sustainability is, do we have enough people? Do we have enough money? Can we fund? So, you know, a lot of us talk about, hey, we don't have enough resources. So defining success is, are we successful in building this equitable project? And so that success, we do that through metrics, right? We need to be seen. We need to be respected. I think these are really important things. I know personally that I would love GNOME to be seen and respected, but how do we communicate that? We want people to use our software. We want people to understand the work that goes into building GNOME, you know, and we want to know about it. How much work does go into a 6-month release cycle? And how do we get people to join our community? Our community is amazing, and we want people to know about it, but how do we communicate that? Again, this is all about storytelling and with numbers, right? So stories is a great way to connect with people on an emotional level. But what are the key, but when you're telling the story, the things that kind of gets you go, is the numbers. If I said, hey, we're adding, the FlapHub story is amazing, we're adding 40 apps a month. That's 480 people, 480 apps in a year. You know, that's maybe 480 developers coming in and joining the, you know, those kinds of things. You're telling a story that something's great's going on. And so that's, these metrics and facts is what people remember when you tell the story. So I'm going to run through a couple examples of things that where I feel like there's a great story when telling about metrics. And one of my favorite is Flatpak or FlatHub, right? It's for me, this is finally the ability to measure our ecosystem from an application perspective, right? Like how strong is our application story? And FlatHub tells our story. It tells how strong that is, right? And I just gave you a metric from my previous slide, but you know, we got 2,600 total desktop apps. We have 1.8, I think, billion downloads, and we know where they're coming from. We know they're popular in the U.S., they're popular in Brazil, they're in Germany or India, or you know, like we know who is using our applications from that story, right? And I added this 440 new applications because it means that there is an enthusiasm to build apps on the Linux platform that people are interested in. And these numbers actually can get funneled up, right? If one of the things I use Flatpak for internally at Intel, because I'm always interested in telling, hey, this community is great. From a corporation perspective, you should invest in it. But one of the things, as I told you before, I am the community manager for WinAPI. And there's actually an app on FlatHub called Lightwave Explorer. And I would talk to like a VP or something, and I would say, do you know that this Lightwave Explorer has over 1,000 downloads? That's 1,000 people are using this app. And I can say that with assurance because I have metrics that tells me that that many people are using it. And that's a number that you can't actually, that's a number that you can share, right? That's the cool part of this. And it's important that we can tell that story, especially from there, because this is my way of convincing Intel or something that there is an application story. And especially for WinAPI, there are not any apps. I mean, it's really primarily a high performance computing or AI or, you know, kind of cloud kind of thing. So when somebody's writing an app using these libraries and it translates to ordinary people running this code, that's actually means something. So this is sort of a good example of why I love talking about it, because it drives a story. Going back to my slides, it drives the story. My next one is fundraising. These are all real experiences I do, right? This is how I use metrics in my life on behalf of GNOME or on behalf of the Linux App Summit. All of these things, like when I'm asking for money, I'm making the, I have to say, okay, hey, why should you sponsor this conference? Why should you do this? Well, I'm going back to the other one, there's 40 apps being added. There are people doing things. There are apps of nature. I can give concrete examples. And so the other things I could say is like, yeah, hey, you know how many GTK apps are being added? Actually, I can't tell that story. We don't actually collect that information. And that is a great story. If you're the GNOME Foundation and you're telling your sponsors, hey, you know, we've added this many GNOME apps for being Adwaita is successful because we can see a clear enthusiasm for using that. And then from a designer's perspective, they're like, hey, yeah, what we're doing is there's conclusive proof that that what our design is good for people. So, but we can't make that argument if we're not collecting that data. So the other one I'm like is sovereign tech fund impact. And I had made a post on Mastodon saying, if you're giving money to this ecosystem, there's a tangible benefit that we're doing, and whether it's accessibility or graphics or gaming or something, this pool of money is being used. But there's no consistent way that we're doing impact. So if you look at this week in GNOME, we have a kind of a laundry list of things that's happening, right? But it doesn't really give great context as to where it's going with this. Are these projects done? What is the natural end of funding these projects, right? And you know, if we were to take this list and then I put a little kind of example, like if you have STM GNOME accessibility goals, right? How do you know you're funding fully your accessibility goals, right? So if you took the same list, this is not exactly the same report, but in the last one, you know, we had Adrian landing GTK tree view in Orca, or Joni making all these improvements in accessibility, but there's no meter that says, okay, we're inching towards these goals, we're going to complete it, or we're not. And so from a community perspective, maybe the GNOME Foundation knows these things, but we don't, right? Those things are not being published. So, and when they're public, then you can point to have organizations can look at this and say, oh man, you know, these guys are inching. It's been 6 months and I can see this meter moving forward, right? And that drives that this ecosystem is doing great things with this funding. And when you go out and you start saying, and you say, why should we give you money? This shows that you're giving money and we have measurable impact. And especially at a time when we're thinking about, you know, how do we fund the foundation? How do we move? This is where we can make that argument and grow the number of the advisory board, things like that. And so in this one, you know, it's like, this is where CHAOSS comes in, right? Putting together metrics to drive your organization is hard, right? I know as somebody who's for one API who has to have, like, figuring out what's my KPIs, because in my job I have to show something that, you know, why am I here? Did you move your community forward? What's your thing? And so for me, having to think about what those KPIs or what those metrics are, that's hard to do by yourself. But what happens if there is an entire community, a community of open source people who know who are doing the same kind of jobs I'm doing at open source program offices, and put all their collective knowledge together and said, hey, we have all these metrics, right? And so this is what CHAOSS is, right? This is why I partner with CHAOSS and say, these metrics can do something. And so the way CHAOSS works is they have a goal, question, metric approach, right? What's your goal? You know, and what do you want to do with it? And then how do you measure it, right? Hey, Georg, if you want to add any special sauce here?
Yeah, I assume you can all hear me. Thank you for adding these little things. The thing about telling metrics is the way that you need to
And CHAOSS has, you know, a huge number of metric models that you can look at. So you don't have to start from the beginning. You can start, you know, by going through the metrics the people have already formulated and picking and choosing. So I think, did I, because I'm sharing, hit slideshow? Oh, no, I wanted to show this. So here you can search for the various topics. There are organization, platform, software, events, governance, leaderships. So, you know, I just wanted to kind of show what's the kind of span of metrics that CHAOSS has to offer. So there's all kinds of great stuff, especially for me, like things like ecosystem, you know, metrics, responsiveness. You know, like we could look at this and look, this week in GNOME could be even more interesting in terms of how many commits did we do, what are the top MRs that we've had, and that kind of thing, so people can see, right? So, and also this is a two-way street. There are aspects here that, I mean, a lot of it is like program office stuff, but we may have a more, because diversity, right, of projects, we might actually have things to contribute ourselves in terms of what we want to measure, especially when we're one of the kind of people who are doing things like design, right? I lost my slideshow thing. Oh, okay, it looks like I'm back on slideshow. Is it? What happened? Oh, here it is, slideshow. There we go. All right. And of course, there's a great place to start if you want to join the CHAOSS community. There's a getting started. And you can talk to us after the session. Georg is on the big blue button, and more than happy to chat with all of you after, especially in regards to CHAOSS. So, Georg, do you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, certainly. I can talk about collecting data responsibly. Because one of the things that we are very mindful of is that when we look at the GNOME community, we're looking at people, at the developers, the contributors, the maintainers, everyone who is here in these rooms right now in Denver, but also who is online. And so we want to be very upfront about what is being done with the data. And one of the things about getting the right data is that
plugged into the GNOME key cloak system. So, you just got a report. It was really cool. And so something we could look at. I think we have time for one more question. All right. Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And Georg as well. Thank you, Georg, for presenting with me. If you have any questions after this talk, we'll be on Big Blue Button, and happy to answer any questions there. So thank you very much. I'm muted. Unshared.